Hey, so this week we're going to be looking at the Roland TB-3. Some of the pros and cons I've found after using this thing for about a year, so stay tuned. So the Roland TB-3, released 2014, this is still the current iteration, boutiques aside, of the original TB-303. It has 134 preset patches across 4 banks, Bank A being 26 303 sounds, Bank B being made up of bass sounds, Bank C other synth sounds, and Bank D which is more special effects. It has a 64 pattern memory of up to 32 steps each, with 8 scatter variations, with 10 levels of depth each. The interface on these is pretty straightforward compared to the originals. In fact, it's got bits missing compared to the originals. But it features a touch screen, the cut-off, resonance, filter controls, accent and FX knobs. Now these are digital using Roland's ACB analog circuit behaviour technology, modelling each component to give an accurate recreation of the original TB-303, especially the character of the saw and square waveforms. So is this ACB really just a rompler? Well, yeah, to a degree, but a really clever one, where the elements such as attack, slide, tie, etc., they all interact with each other in an analog way to provide a wider scope of available and editable sounds. Roland have done a really good job with the ACB as their take on virtual analog modelling. In fact, ACB is a field in which Roland really have excelled. My first Roland Rompler was the MVS1, which again it's a virtually uneditable vintage synth rack unit with an incredible, albeit limited, sound palette comprising of a variety of vintage analog gear. Not only reproducing classic Roland synths, however, but also tones from like the Oberheim, amongst many others. One of the love-hate factors of the TB-3 was the jump towards the touchscreen. Touted as pressure sensitive, it sadly doesn't offer the aftertouch or modulation we would have liked to have seen, or that indeed was implied. But rather a simple on and off value. Where it does come into its own though is for the ease of step recording, and even more so for the real-time recording, where along with the TB-3's ability to switch smoothly between pattern creation and performance modes, it really highlights how well designed the whole Aira range is for live use. A quick look at some of the pros, and to be honest there's quite a few. It's an intuitive 303, and whatever your thoughts are on whether or not you accept it as a 303, it still is Roland's latest version. The 32-step sequencer couldn't be easier to use, and for those who still can't be asked, there's always the random pattern generator. It has the same 18 decibel per octave ladder filter as the original, audio and MIDI both over USB. Since the update it now has pattern lock, which lets you play around without losing the original pattern. I'll come to that in a second. External MIDI recording also to real-time record patterns played in from external MIDI devices, and that's a great feature. The 4 oscillator synth engine with Roland's amazing effects are really capable. They're capable of a wide variety of great sounds. So quickly the cons. For some reason a lot of people don't like the touchscreen, but I get the impression that this is purely for the aesthetics and for the large design leap from the original. One of the biggest criticisms of these was that sound edits can't be saved. Do you know what? They can't be on most gear though, to be fair. All depends on where you want to put your knobs, isn't it? Just the bizarre pattern auto-save behaviour. Although since the update, which is now 7 years ago, Roland, come on, you can now allow preset patches to be assigned to the saved patterns by locking them together, which was a big help. Another downside is the shifting FX parameters patch to patch. You can control selecting FXs, but that's by SysX only, unfortunately, not MIDI. That it does have some MIDI capabilities, but most of the controls over this, for what you can really get out of it, are SysX only. The XY play mode, it's largely naff, but on the whole, these are great. I love them. Lots and lots of time for these, because they integrate so well, obviously, with the whole Aira range. It's permanently plugged into the MX1, so the minute I hit start on the MX1, this thing fires up. Obviously playing whatever I was playing last, because that's just what it does. But it's so useful for other stuff. It's not just Acid. Whatever your thoughts are on Acid, if you have any thoughts on Acid, maybe you don't. Who knows? In fact, when I first picked one of these up, however, I wasn't that taken by it. I think that was mostly I just watched the ADSR. They did an awesome video comparing the original 303, the TT-303, the TB-3 and the TB-03. And they did this comparison with a 3D spectrometer. And this showed the TB-3 has been the least sounding like the original, and the TB-03 has been the nearest to the closest to the original, which is interesting considering that they both have the same synth engines between the TB-3 and the TB-03. I'm not sure how they managed to get this such a wide variation. Who knows? But anyway, that kind of put me off. I wanted something sounded just like the original, and it really does sound like the original. It's not only does it sound like the original, but it's also so much more than just a 303. Highly recommend these. Fantastic little things, and pick them up so cheap now. Absolute dirt cheap. Anyway, if you haven't, please like, comment, subscribe. Any questions about these at all, drop them in the comments below. I've obviously, kind of read quite a lot on these. Many thanks.